Yeah. So as I mentioned, when working with Kundalini, we have the two paths, as we call it. We have the right hand path, which is the masculine path, which is about self-direction, which is this idea that I'm doing something for an effect. I am doing my breath of fire. I am moving my body in this way, or I am meditating and focusing on a mantra in order to help me activate my energy. So that is the right hand path, also known as the masculine path. On the contrary, we have the feminine path, which is the path of surrender, which is the complete opposite in that the awakening, the activation happens not by you consciously doing something, but actually by you just allowing. So this is built on the belief that, again, Kundalini is already inherent within us. And the only reason why we have not fully experienced it and the reason why she is dormant is because there haven't been the conditions through which she has the space to freely flow. And so just kind of looking at the greater context first, I want to reemphasize that it's not one path is better than the other. It's not like, oh, I only go masculine or I only go feminine. The whole point of Kundalini in a Kundalini awakening is the return back to that infinite consciousness. And in the return back to the infinite consciousness, there is the return back to wholeness within self first. The wholeness within self is about the merging of two opposite ends of polarities, meaning that we have to join our personal inner masculine and inner feminine. So this is why in my approach, I love to weave the two together in the two interweaving serpents, as we know, the Ida and the Pingala, the masculine and the feminine, the yin and the yang, as we call it in Chinese culture as well. We need these two energies to work together in order to actually create a stable foundation for Kundalini to rise, for Kundalini to continue her process in the body. So when it comes to specifically in the energy activation sessions, what can often happen on the outside when we're watching a video, when we are even experiencing it for ourselves, it feels a lot like magic. It's like, oh my gosh, like I just laid there doing nothing. And then all of a sudden my body's moving, my body's shaking. I'm having like astral traveling journeys. Like what's going on? So I can actually break that down on a very simple scientific level as well as to what's actually going on. So within our body, we have our nervous system, as we know, and we have the two separation between the parasympathetic nervous system and the sympathetic nervous system. The parasympathetic nervous system is our nervous system that we often associate with rest and digest, with calm, safety, I'm good, right? So the parasympathetic nervous system, when we actually look at the masculine and feminine lens, represents the feminine, right? It's that ability to slow down and be like, okay, I breathe, I flow, everything's good. Now, on the flip side, the sympathetic nervous system is the fight or flight, I got to make sure I'm okay. It's the survival. And so what happens is that these two nervous systems are also associated with the primary energies that we experience in our body, which is known as electricity and magnetism. Electricity is associated with Kundalini. As we know, when Kundalini begins to move, it's electric, it's like fiery, it's dancey, exactly. And the magnetism, it's more of that heaviness, it's more of the gravity, it's more of like that third dimensional, I got to move through things linear. That's the magnetism. So what happens in our day-to-day, especially the way that our societies are designed, is that we're highly inner sympathetic, and it's not our fault. Right. But the way that we have the pressures of, I got to be successful, I got to make enough money to pay my bills, I got to make sure that I'm good, I got to take care of my family, I got to do this, I got to do that. Oh my gosh, I'm stressed. That puts us in a sympathetic state. When we're in a sympathetic state, that means that the natural energy balance in our body is that it's higher magnetism and lower electricity. Right. So that is where the left brain becomes more dominant, the logical thinking. The left brain is also associated with the masculine, right? So this is where people often say, I overthink a lot. I'm a logical person. I'm a rational person. Just got to like find the answer, got to figure it out. Kundalini, on the other hand, is the feminine. It's the right brain. It's the creativity. It's the intuition, the movement, the trusting. So in these activations, primarily, from a scientific perspective, what we are doing is that we're creating the primary circumstances through which the parasympathetic nervous system can be activated in a loving and safe way. So this is where in these activation journeys, we have everyone lie down, close their eyes, put on an eye mask, which in and of itself is a radical thing to do because we normally never do this aside from Shavasana or going to sleep. It's like, we won't just be like, yeah, let me just take an hour out of my day to just lie down and do nothing. Like what? So when we allow people to just lie down, even something shifts in their body. right? So already that like heavy magnetism, sympathetic nervous system response can start to decline. And the moment that it declines, because again, this is masculine and feminine imbalance, when masculine goes down, then the feminine has a space to rise. Then that's where the potential of Kundalini awakening, the potential of experiencing your true self begins to arise, because there's a space for that, right? When the left brain is constantly boom, 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 I'm here, the right brain doesn't have space to come up and say, let me just move into my creative power. So when the left brain kind of calms down a bit by just lying down, we begin to have that space for the right brain to be activated. Now, along in these journeys, what's also being created as a circumstance to support people in opening their Kundalini energy is brainwave shifting sound. So the way that we design our playlist is very intentional by bringing in all the different brainwaves. So we've got our slowest brainwaves, our delta, we've got our thetas, our alphas, our betas, which are the faster brainwaves. And what was discovered by the inner dance, which is where this work originated from a man named Pai Villaraza, is that this shifting of brainwaves in the music actually induces an altered state of consciousness that is very similar to trance, almost like in hypnosis, where we're primarily in theta, but here we kind of cycle through all the different brainwaves. And this altered state of consciousness creates what is called the dreaming awake state. So the dreaming awake state is where you are kind of in the in-between. You're like, I'm kind of asleep, but I'm also awake, and I kind of am aware, and like boom, boom, boom. And this, going back to yogic terms, when we actually look at the 5 koshas, we know that at the core, in the bliss sheath of the 5 koshas, that's where Kundalini lies. And the way that we actually enter in to meet Kundalini is by entering into a dreaming awake state, where the conscious mind is no longer super loud and present, but there's that lucidity, that fluidity that becomes possible. So that's the second factor that we hold in order for these activations to take place. The third thing that happens is that there is an energetic resonance that is being held. So this is where, again, to be a facilitator, it has a lot more to do with us actually embodying our own Kundalini frequency and being courageous in our healing journey, as opposed to learning something new to do. Yes, there are different practices and things to, bring into your practice as a facilitator, but so much of it is, are you willing to walk the Kundalini path for yourself? Because that's the only way that you can hold that frequency of the energy and actually connect with it from the cosmos, from the earth, and bring it into resonance in a shared space. The way that the Kundalini frequency works is that it's like a tuning fork. So we as the facilitator will bring in like a frequency of Kundalini and go like, ding! And then that reverberation, right, will ripple into the people in the room, and whatever is ready to be awakened and moved within them, they'll start to vibrate. And then the energy begins to awaken inside of them. What's also actually happening simultaneously, as I'm discovering now, is that there is also, in a sense, a transmission of vital life force energy. So we call this prana or chi. In Taoism, we call it chi. In traditional Hinduism and the Vedic teachings, we call this prana, the life force. And what's happening is that prana and chi is necessary for Kundalini to do her work. Because Kundalini is a form of consciousness, right? Kundalini energy, what is actually the energy part, is chi, is prana. So in order for Kundalini to actually have the vehicle to move through someone's body and to purify and open, there's got to be enough prana in the body, which is also why that masculine path is so important, right? Being able to know how to do your breathwork practices, being able to do your kriyas, that's naturally going to enhance the flow of prana and chi in your body and actually create the necessary nervous system foundation for Kundalini to continue her process. So that's what's happening in the activations. Is you lie down, you put on an eye mask, you relax, music is being played, it just sounds like good songs, but simultaneously you're being brought into an altered state of consciousness. The very act of lying down will activate your parasympathetic nervous system. There is a frequency of Kundalini brought into the space that will serve you in resonance to activate what is ready to be activated. And yeah, there's also a transmission of life force that then supports you in moving through emotional blockages and helping you liberate yourself. So that's a little crash course on what happens in activations.